Hey there, welcome to the podcast. In this interview series, I interview Brandon Voss. And if you haven't seen the previous episodes, go back, check out the podcast, search Zach Calhoun Podcast, subscribe, and go back to the first episode where you can hear the entire interview where Brandon unlocks and reveals all his steps in his process as a professional real estate photography team. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. Make sure to subscribe, shoot us a review, and let's get to the interview. This episode is brought to you by CloudPano.com. Create 360 virtual tours, white label them with your own URL, add floor plans, dollhouses, upload to Google Street View. CloudPano.com is the #1 virtual tour platform. Get started today at CloudPano.com.
Okay. So the average house is, let me back up. The
Sure.
average sale per project is it's about $220 per project.
Okay, cool. So
Um,
I call that AOV, average order value. That's what I
right.
called.
Okay. AOV. I got it. I'm learning
Okay, cool.
stuff too.
You're tracking. Come on, pick it up. Come on. All right,
So
220 is your AOV. Got it. All right, so keep going.
220 is AOV, but the actual like base price is closer to like 155.
Okay.
And then depending on the size of the property, it could vary a little bit, but we'll just call it 155 for the average property.
Sure.
But to get to that 220, they've purchased some add-ons, some
Yeah.
upsells. So what we do on our system is it's online ordering. I would say about 80% of all the agents just do everything online. We sometimes never even see them or speak to them, because we may show up to the property, there's a lockbox so
Yeah.
they went online, they ordered, we showed up, there's a lockbox, we took the pictures, delivered them the next day, never even spoke to them.
Okay,
um
that's very key, very important to this whole model. I want to talk about that a little bit more, but keep going.
okay
We'll come back to it.
okay
This is a big
sure
deal,
sure sure
actually. Yeah.
So they put in there that they put in the address, the square footage, it pops out some base options, they pick that, and then it's going to ask them, would you like to get a virtual twilight? Would you like to do virtual staging? Do you need any digital decluttering? Do you need a video? Would you like to upgrade your package to a video package? Or, do you need a 360 tour?
Sure.
All of the, do you need drone? Like all these add-ons, and really, like my profit margin is actually quite a bit better for the add-ons than it is for the photography,
This sounds
because
good.
the
Yeah.
photography, I'm paying the photographer based on the photos they took. A
Mhm.
lot of those add-ons they have nothing to do with the add-ons, so that's more profit for me. um
Sure.
so really it's all about the upsell.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about profit for a minute here, because I know we're talking general numbers, so you don't have to be like perfect here. We can give a
Sure.
disclaimer, everybody. Hold on, like these are just like some rough numbers. Okay, it's totally fine. So we got 220 is your AOV for average house. So what's the highest if someone takes it all? I mean, you don't have to include like per image stuff, but like just like what's the most commonly grabbed high? What's the high ticket number? What's the highest number? If I was to
The
go on
highest
to your
number.
to your order system, like what is it? 350, 400? What's the big boy package?
Okay,
You got to
so
guess. Drone, give it to me.
right,
Twilight,
right.
put it all on there. Virtual tour,
Right. And
everything.
so if they had like an 8,000 square foot property, they want photos, video, you name it, they've ordered it all. They're easily going to be spending about $1,200.
Okay.
So it- you know, that's like if they just called me. I mean, if you have an 8,000 square foot property, you probably want the works.
Hmm.
And that's not we don't have like the works package at this time. um because what I have learned, I took a kind of a lesson from Taco Bell.
Okay.
So a few years back, Taco Bell, uh they did a study, and they found that a smaller menu actually produced higher sales. So that's around the time, if you I don't know if you go to Taco Bell much, but there was a few years back where all of a sudden the menu just shrunk down like big time. And that was why, because they found out that if they had smaller, fewer things. So I do the same thing on my website. I only have three basic packages at this
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to start adding a couple more, but for years I've always had three packages. They could get photos, they could get photos and video, or they could get photos, video, and drone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they can start picking all their a la carte stuff. They want a 360 tour, they want, you
Mm-hmm.
know, twilights, they want to add actual twilights, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But when if we get a giant property like that, they probably want the works. They're probably going to be calling us on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's when we're like, we know they're going to have a high budget on this marketing for this project.
And you
So
can quote a price that makes sense that you think
exactly,
they're going to
I
say
can
yes to.
be like, hey, $1,200. We'll make sure that you have everything you need plus some.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I think, but that's pretty rare though. I mean,
Yeah.
the bread and butter is like photos, video, and some virtual twilights, things like that. That's really what keeps the lights on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's helpful. Okay. So let's talk about like what you pay your photographers. I'd love to know
Okay,
what per house, like what's common.
so they're not, the minimum they'll make is $40. That's
Mm-hmm.
like the absolute minimum. If they just show up and the house isn't even ready and they don't do anything, they're still going to get $40 just for being
Mm-hmm.
there.
Okay.
But obviously, like, that's pretty rare. That's almost as rare as having one of these giant projects.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they're making anywhere from $50 to $100 a property,
Okay.
and that just depends on what they do. So let's just, to make the numbers easy, for a house that's between 1,000 and 2,500 square feet, they get $50 for just doing photos,
Mm-hmm.
and that's 20 photos. So they drive there, take their
Yeah.
20 plus ish photos, and then drive home. They got $50.
Yeah.
Um, and then if they did drone there, they get another $50. If they
Cool.
did video, another $50.
Okay.
So now they're at 150 when they did all three items.
Nice.
Um, so that's what they really hope for. So when they're going
Yeah.
through, our system just populates their Google Calendar.
Cool.
So the night before, they'll log into their calendar and they'll just look and see what their day is like the next day.
Yeah.
And I know, because I asked them, like, that typically they'll scroll through and just start clicking on to see, like, is this going to be a big one? Oh yeah, this one's got video and drone.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay. Got it. Got it. Cool. That's great. This is good. I want to dig into all this stuff. Okay. So, all right.
sure.
This is really good. So, um, okay, where should I start? So I love that. Okay, so how many listings does a photographer? Yeah, five is a lot. Listen, I'm not shying away from it. This is a big operation. Okay, in my mind, like,
Sure.
because I know where you're located, right? You're west part of Houston. You're far out here. You're not in this like downtown, like hustle and bustle. You're like in the suburbs, right? So I
Right.
know that this is not some massive, huge market, high margin market. This is like a basic, I call myself basic. I'm out here too. Basic suburban market, right? It's like really probably very normal for a lot of people out there. So how many listings does each photographer typically shoot per day and then per week? And this is, I guess you said five or four active, fully active. What's their typical life look
All
like?
right. So I just pulled up a calendar from, I suppose I could share my screen, but it
It's
looks
okay.
like a rainbow just threw up on my
Sure.
screen
Yeah.
because everybody's color coded. But I'm just gonna pick out, the yellow photographer, we'll call them. And I counted it a minute ago. They had 13. They only shot Monday through Friday that week, and they had 13 projects.
Okay.
And then of those, I would say one, two, three, four, five, six of those, seven of those were large projects. So it had multiple things. So
Sure.
On
A half. Oh,
average,
yeah, half of them. Wow. Okay.
yeah. So she typically makes anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400 a week.
Yeah. Cool.
Um, but and then and then one thing that we do is each photographer can go in our system and they basically outline where they're willing to drive and what their trip fees should be,
Okay.
um, things like that. And obviously, the larger the area, the farther they're willing to drive, the smaller the trip fees, things like that. They get more work. So
Okay.
for those photographers that are there, they need this job to pay their rent, to pay their utilities, like that they live on this.
Mm-hmm.
Those photographers, I recommend to them, like, get your drone license, get comfortable doing video, because if you don't have those two things, you're already making a third of what the other photographers are.
Mm-hmm.
And then be willing to drive. And if you do those things, you're going to make enough money to to live on.
Mm-hmm.
I have other photographers that I have, one photographer that I'm looking at, one, two, three, four, I would say she did 6 jobs that week, but she doesn't do video. She doesn't do drones. So I can tell you right now, she
Mm-hmm.
made about $300 probably.
Yeah. Makes
So,
sense.
and, and then myself, I try to do like one or two a day ish.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So and then like this particular week that I've pulled up, I only shot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't shoot every day. I prefer to let the photographers do a majority of the work because I know I'm going to make money if they make money. So the way my plan to kind of go back to how I pay the photographers, if you really dumbed it down, basically I make, let's say the job was $150.
Mm-hmm.
I might spend $50 on editing, and then that leaves me with $100, profit, so to speak. I would split that with the photographer.
Okay.
So they make 50, I make 50.
Gotcha.
Of course, there's a lot more overhead than that, but that's if you really dumbed it down. I'm
Yeah.
basically taking the profit and splitting it in half with the photographer.
Yeah.
So if she made $1,200 that week, then I roughly made $1,200 that week, off of just the one photographer.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I'm paying a full-time assistant, the
Yeah.
editors, like there's a lot more overhead, but you get the idea.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To get an automatic notification of our next podcast episode, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate you. Keep hustling, and I'll see you in the next episode.